What do you say we get to building this C-47 Skytrain from Dynam and Bitgo Hobbies? Let's go. All right, guys, we're going to get started on this build. It looks like the first thing, according to directions, we're going to have to put in this horizontal stab. And I'm going to go ahead and open up my package of pieces here and take out this screwdriver. The last one I got from Bitgo, actually, or Dynam, I should say, through Bitgo worked really well. I usually use some type of cover or a little container to throw my pieces in out of the bag so I can see what we have in there. Again, it comes with some glue, control horn, wing screw. Looks like those are for probably the elevator, if I had to guess, maybe. Again, we got that thing we talked about, and then the little widget for the top. And our screwdriver, we'll get rid of this garbage. We'll throw it over here on the side. And I'm going to drag out my tools. These are from RJX Tools, customized, just plain crazy. We'll be using those for our build. And I think we're ready to get started. So they want us to apply the glue to the slot and get this thing put in here. So two things that are going to pop in my head right out of the gate. Number one, we got to take paint off of there and here, and I need to know where that is. So I can easily just mark those locations. You can use a Sharpie or a pencil if you want, something like that. Just going to make a couple light marks in there. Kind of give me an idea where I want to take paint off. And if you've never done this before, this is pretty simple. You can just get some tape, whatever kind of tape you want to use. Press it onto the foam and just give it a pull. Sometimes, depending on how good the paint is, you may need to do a few of them, a few passes on the foam like that. Really just kind of press that stuff on. It's like you're waxing. You're waxing, baby. And then I just realized something else that isn't in the directions. And we'll talk about that here in just a second. The more you get off, the better. We don't want the thing coming off in flight, right? And get the last piece right there. So that looks pretty good. That's how easy it is. And then, as always, the recommendation is just to rough that foam up just a little bit. That helps with adhesion. Now, because we went through our stuff in the unboxing video, this thing looks like, to me, it has to go there. And it can only fit in one way. You can't screw this up. But that looks like to me that would definitely need to be in place prior to gluing this thing down. And it doesn't tell you that in the directions. And that's okay. Like I said, when I model build, I like to have a little bit of a workload to figure things out myself. And then now we need to take those edges and we need to remove the paint down through here. And because I made those lines, it's pretty easy just to take a piece of tape and literally just work. I'll go just a little bit in because I don't want to take that paint off to the outside where you're going to see it. We'll just peel that. And we can go flip the tape the other way. Take that off. Do the same thing on the other side. That looks pretty good. And then again, rough that foam up a little bit. There. And now the glue that I'm going to use is really foam tack, but it doesn't say foam tack. And it's $7 from Hobby Lobby for this big container. And since I'm doing a bigger glue job, I'm going to use this stuff. But the first thing that we're going to go ahead and do is to glue this thing into place here. And then that's going to be our elevator linkage, which is going to stick down right through here and into the bottom. So I think as we put that in place, we'll fish it into the wire right out of the gate. And I'm going to take this thing and just rough up some of this foam inside this crease. See exactly where this thing is sitting. So that's sitting there, right up on that inside. All right, now we'll blow that out. Put in a little bit of glue in that channel. And so make sure we got plenty in there to keep that glued in. And this thing has holes in it. So we want that glue to push into them holes and really hold it. And then we're going to go ahead and, I just got the screwdriver here, we'll just use it. We're going to back that thing all the way out so we can get our horn in there. I think the other thing that may not be a bad idea while we're here this is hinge tape or Blenderm tape. 1/2 inch wide is usually the preferred. We'll cut off a piece of this. Cut it in half again. We're just going to go over these ends, and that's just going to help to hold that in place while we work. So I don't have to worry about that popping out until that glue settles in there. Like I said, we'll wind up hinging that whole line anyway. So this is ideally what we want. We want that hinge to go there and back. Work that a little bit. Just make sure that thing's pushed inside of there. And then, as I said again, we'll get that wire for the elevator tucked into the inside. Or if it's even easier, we're just gonna pop off this servo arm altogether. We're going to slide that back out of there. And then we don't have to deal with it. So now we're going to go ahead and smooch this up. Plenty of glue. Leave it out of that channel. And then we're going to get it in this little circular dot on the inside of there. We're going to take this thing in, push it in to its spot. Notches in, you'll feel the little bump in the back. Give it a good press. Now we're going to take it out. We'll put that back in. Now we'll go around. We can slide our linkage. You guys can see that. We're going to try and slide that rod got to get a needle nose and turn that. Got to make sure that quick link is lined up. And now we'll bring that push rod. And I'm glad I did it this way because it makes it a lot easier than trying to jerk around and line everything all up at once. And for now, we're just going to get that thing just pushed in like so. We're going to put this control horn or this servo arm back on place, back in the middle somewhere. And it looks like to me that thing may be a little long. So we'll just slide it out the top for now until we get it in place. Got our arm back where it's supposed to go. Put that screw back in the inside on the servo arm. Make sure that's tight. Might as well check the other servo arm while we're there, and then the other connection. So those are good. And make sure everything stays lined up. All right, let's look at step 2. So our next step is going to be to put in the vertical stab. And this vertical stab procedure is just like it was for here. We're going to install it placement-wise and mark it. And we're going to do the same thing. Just going to rough this foam up a little bit so it stays. And that looks really good. And now we have to do the same thing here. And now we're going to rough this up. We'll go to the inside. Now we're going to get some glue in here. Slide that in. I'll just lift it up and let it get some air and get tacky. And then we're going to push that right back down into place. If you have any glue, now's a quick time to wipe that stuff off. All right, let's let that dry and set up. Now we're going to glue in our little plastic bit, doodad. A little bit of foam tack on there. This stuff is little cool feature. It's usually the stuff we break off of the model right away when you throw it in the car. We're going to go ahead and glue in this rudder horn. Again, scratching some of this foam up on the inside of there. Going to take our glue and fill that up. I'm going to go ahead and open up this rod to make it a little easier on myself. We're going to put that over that control rod there and turn it into position. We're going to press this thing in. There's a spot, there's a shoulder there, so you're going to be able to feel when it's in right. We'll take that out. I think I'm just going to squeeze a little bit more down into there. I'm not going to tighten that up yet. I'm just kind of using it for a guide. And that horn is in. And on the back side, remember we have that one here for the elevator, so we're covered there as well. So we're going to let that glue dry. We'll see what the next step is. Well, the fuselage is dry, and now it's time to get the main wings together and the wing spar. There's 3 channels here, essentially, but the first 1 and 2 are going to be for probably wires, I would assume, with the ESC. Before we put those in, we're going to go ahead and join these wings together, and you're essentially using what is the middle channel, if you will, for these wings, and you're going to have to put that in there. Now, as you do that, it will draw the wings flat if you put the weight in the center, but what's going to happen is you can have that and have the wings apart like that. So I'm also going to preventatively here do the same thing we did with everything else. I'm going to take the paint off here so we can apply a little bit of glue to stick those together. And this may not be a bad idea. I'm going to see if I have a set of dowels. I'm going to put maybe a dowel in here and a dowel in there just to make it easier when I go to push them together and line it up and give them something grip-wise to stay instead of just this and some weight on it. So let's get started. And I don't care if it's a $600 model or if it's a $200 model or a $50 model. When you're a modeler, an enthusiast, pilot, whatever you want to call yourself, there's things we can do to put touches into it that other people didn't think of or didn't want to try or didn't feel it was necessary. And that's all. All of that is completely okay. It doesn't mean one product is good or bad or better than another. It just means that we found something that seems to make sense to us, that is worth doing to protect our model, to protect our investment. And to me, price is never really that factor, because I don't just say, oh, well, this model was 800 bucks, so I'm not going to do anything to it because it's fine. I've done stuff to $800 models and not done them to $200 models. And this one, I, want to do some things to it and keep it around and modify it a little bit. So I think there's some things that I can do that's in my forte to help me. And we're going to do just like we did before, since these are all joined together. Rough that up. And there. All right, let me see. I'm gonna go dig around and see what I can find for dowels. Be right back. We are back, and I found some pieces. Got 2 little pieces of carbon tubing here. I cut them right about the same length. And what I'm going to do is just simply place these right into the foam. One there. One there. And then we're going to eyeball and adjust. If you wanted to, we could do it this way. Put these flat on the table so at least you know where those pieces are. You know, height-wise, you're lined up. All right, guys, I like the way that fits in there. So we are just going to go ahead now and get our glue. Pop that thing out. We'll put a little glue on there to help hold it in place. Like that. Get our other one. And then we're going to give that a covering right there. Right there. Got a little bit over the edge. Just easily wipe that off. A little bit on that carbon. Push them together, and we'll let that bond there for a minute, and pull it apart. And I'm just using the seams of the wings to hold us together, to line everything up. I think one of the things I'm going to do here is I'm going to break out some rubber bands to just help hold this together. That'll keep that squeezed. Now this channel that's in here, we're going to do the same thing and try and take out some of this. Paint. The nice part is you can actually use the carbon rod and push that right down in there. Like that. Look at that. Perfect. Perfect, gentlemen. We're going to take this, we're going to fill that channel up with a bunch of glue. Now we're going to take this carbon rod, I'm going to push that right down in that channel, and I'm actually going to rotate this so I don't lose my blade. All I'm trying to do is rotate that around. And now we really want to put that weight and get some weight down on this carbon spar. So we want this thing to be pushed down nice and flat. If you let the wings bowed, guys, it's not going to hold, so we have to get some weight on there. So I'm going to use one piece of foam there and one there. I don't know, might need it here instead. Yeah, that's better. Right on that seam. Those rubber bands are helping to pull that together. So that weight right there is really keeping the center of the wing down. So this whole wing tube is glued in straight. And the other thing that we can do is I'm going to prop these up a little bit. Having a mix of weights in your shop, guys, is always a plus. So I'm just going to put that there. And it looks like we'll put that weight. We can get it to stay there just dead center. Get it all to sit right on that spar really seems to be the best. And now we can elevate the wings a little bit. With that, all that weight there in the center pushing down on the spar and the elevation there, it's really going to glue it all the way across. While that's drying, guys, we're going to go ahead and put in the landing gear. So this stuff just literally gets glued into place. Again, we're going on painted surfaces, so we'll just rough this stuff up a little bit. Do the same thing here with the other side. And because this is plastic, one of the things that we can do here is to help this adhere so it don't rip out. This is some 40 grit. It's rough. We'll just rough all those edges up. So we're going to go ahead and glue these in a while also. The gear is not side specific, so it doesn't matter. We're just going to place that thing in there. Let that sit for a minute and then we'll pull it out. Let that tack up and put that back in. While that's drying, I'm just going to go ahead and test out my carbon rod for placement, and that still looks good. And what we're going to do now is I really want the wing to set up really well. I don't want it to go anywhere. So I am literally just going to leave this sit now probably overnight. And we will be back tomorrow to work on it. Have a good night. We're going to go ahead now and rough up this little insert. And this gets glued into the back side of the wing. Again, we're just going to rough up any of the foam. Have you guys noticed what the mantra is? Rough up the foam. The wing has now had plenty of time for this glue to set up. And I'm going to take a look here at what we have to do in order to get all of our wires and speed control stuff fished through. So let's go ahead and take this weight off. And now we're going to go ahead and plug in our speed controls. And these are accessible should we need to change them later. And according to the picture, if you plug them in this way, it goes black, blue, and red. So black, blue, and red in that order. So we will fish those through here. We're going to continue along with the wing build and assembly. And I do want to show you, I'm going to tuck the wires in using some different tape, and we're going to tape up those ends because they are short. So I did put them on a Y harness here. They're going to be tight right down in that hole. So you want to make sure that you get the Y harness on now, and we'll tape those up so you have plenty of room. If you want to make your life a lot easier in here, these ESCs are kind of big for this pocket. And then they give you these covers, and these covers have to sit right down over the top here. All right, so these ESCs kind of get in the way if you turn them sideways. The best thing for you to do is, I'm trying to find which one will be easier, probably this one. I notched out the foam right there through those channels. You can see right down in there, I notched all that out below that magnet. And I also notched out below the magnet in there. So that way these ESCs literally just slide. Watch this. Slide right in there. And now the connectors are seated right up against the front. So there's enough room there. And then this cover, I also extended the notch out right there. So we still have the main spar support going all the way through, which we'll put lots of glue on there. And you'll see that that'll be filled in there as well. But the covers can now sit flat. And also we have plenty of room here notched over the ESC to keep all of our wiring in that channel. We'll just tape that in there so it don't get in the way. We just don't want the wires to sit on top of that rib and then get in the way of this cover, because as we glue that cover in, that's a lot of support for this rod. There's no bracing there like there was in the PT-17 that I build. And I think that's fine, but you have to make sure what you do here is correct. And we did that by making sure the ESCs are mounted in there right and the covers are cut. This thing in a test fit great. The covers fit great, no problem. We're going to go ahead and tape these up. We're going to remove the paint along the whole outside edge and probably here along the tops of the ribs so we can get those out. And then we're going to glue this thing down. Now this thing already has the paint more or less off of it. There's a couple spots there. We're going to take that off, but for the most part here, this should be fairly quick. Let's get to it. Everything's cleaned up on the inside, laid and set. Everything is test fit, and we should be good to go. So we're going to go ahead and take our foam tack, and I think instead of putting it on this piece, I think we're going to lay it in the inside, and then that way I'm not maneuvering it around and getting slop everywhere. Guess the good and the bad part about this is if you ever have to do a wing repair, I don't know if that's going to happen. And I'm just going to put a liberal amount of glue in here in this channel around this spar. So again, we encase the spar, and then the spar doesn't want to move or come out because there's plenty of glue in there. And now this thing you have to slide through the gear. And then we're going to push it down into place. So you almost have to twist and insert. And this does have, it's really tight fit. It's like a nice, they did a good job estimating the size of this thing. And like I said, I removed that foam to make the ESCs fit. So that way you're not fighting it. And that thing is down in there nice. Probably get some weights to set on there, and then we'll let that cure overnight. And then all you do with these covers is these covers are just going to slide into place and they'll push in. But we'll put them in a little bit later. But for now, we're just going to let this set up and cure overnight. That way we know that we could trust our wing in flight. So we'll see you guys tomorrow. So our glue should be dry. We're going to go ahead and take the weights off of the wing. We're going to go ahead and put in our covers, so those things should snap right into place now, I hope. So that one's in. So I think we're going to call our wing complete at this point. We'll fish those through. We'll go ahead and apply a piece of tape here on our speed controllers. Wires just to make sure that those don't come apart. Again, they make locks for these if you want to use locks. Those will work fine. And now we're ready to bring over our fuse. We'll go ahead and unpack our servos. Now this will be wherever you decide to mount your receiver. You can take that off. There's room in here for the battery and the receiver to tuck into the back, so we're going to fish everything through for now like it's going to be up front. And we'll go ahead and fish those through that way. We're going to go ahead and just check our screws just to make sure everything there is tight. And we can revisit from before this elevator adjustment screw on the back. We didn't have super tight right now. And you could see up here that that thing is held in place by a Z-bend. So here in the back, when we go to set that elevator control, we have to make sure that the servo is centered, which it is, which we can also use a that is really wild. I'm thinking not so much. I don't know why that thing is on there, but I guess that's a good catch as to why is this thing there? Because I don't think our rudder and elevator are run off of the same Y harness. So that's very interesting. Those definitely have to be separate. So we're going to get a couple extensions there. Not sure what the intended purpose of that is, but it could have been somebody just put it on there by accident, but nonetheless. So we're going to go ahead and hook that up. We're going to hook in our, and again, there's neutral, so we know where neutral is. And now we will bring over our so you can see hopefully our elevator control there. That foam holds that more or less neutral as it is. And we're just going to go ahead and access this quick adjuster. And we'll see if we can grab that with a pair of needle nose. Just because I'm pushing on it here pretty hard. There, and then we can trim off that extra of that push rod because we don't need that. Leave a little bit in there, but not too much. And while we're here, we might as well just change this right over, and we will hook up our rudder. So there's center on our rudder. And while we're here, we can just go ahead and position the tail wheel in place. Has a little notch out right there for you so you can get that set screw in there. So you almost can't get that wrong. And like always with everything, it's always a good idea just to cycle your servos, just to test them all out beforehand. And we still have to set our rudder here in the back. And that's going to be our Phillips head. And again, we can cycle. As you can hear, we have a little bit of rubbing across our rudder in the back, which isn't a big deal. You could take a nail file and file that down, or you could literally take an X-Acto knife or razor blade and just shave some of that off. And here's the other nice part about your servo tester, is you can go ahead and just set that right there. Now it's time to install these pretty cool looking 3-blade propellers. They are different side to side, so you got to make sure that you have them on the right way. I'm going to leave that one nut on there so it fits firmly into the back, like so. That'll keep that locked on to the motor. And this side is left-hand thread. It's not righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. It's the other way around. So you actually think you're loosening this and you're tightening it. So we're going to thread that thing on there like that. Make that nice and tight. Now I'm going to thread on the jam nut on this hub, and that'll act like a jam nut right on the outside. I guess you can leave that other nut off if you want to, and then the hub would sit flat against there, but I like the idea of just having a jam nut, if you will, out there, so that appearance. And we're going to do the other side now. There you go. Something worth noting here, guys, these are counter-rotating props. They rotate to the outside of the motor, which means the left side goes clockwise, the other side goes counterclockwise. The props are sided, so you have a dull blade and a sharp blade. Dull blade and a sharp edge of the blade. When I first put this together, I followed the directions that are labeled out in here as far as the ESC, and it tells you orientation with a black, blue, and red, so that's what I followed. And you get one prop that spins one way and one that spins the other way. Not a big deal, because we put the ESCs in like we did. All you ever have to do with an electric motor, 3-phase, if it's not spinning the right way, is to just go ahead and reverse 2 leads. And that's all I did, was reverse the blue and the black one. And because this is fastened in here so nicely, that was a breeze with a pair of needle nose. Pull it out, pluck them, change them. And then again, our covers will snap right back in to there. Get that down underneath that cover. Some days doing this with the GoPro isn't great because you wind up running out of hands. Let me stick you back in the holder. Check that out. All right, now our cover's back in. When we check out this thing as it is. So some of the features I already like about this: counter-rotating props. I like the way that those fit. Fairly ease of assembly, really. It wasn't super complicated. The finish is pretty decent with a small couple details here. The glue on the green does seem to overrun, and you could really see anywhere where glue got out of hand. And the other thing is I dinged it around a couple times down here in the layer. Anytime that you put a small nick in it in this dark green color, the white shows up, which isn't a big deal. It's a foamy, it's going to handle it. It's not a big deal. Maybe some of the invasion stripes and stuff will cover that, but there's really a lot of room on the inside for balancing. I just have my 3-cell 2.2 2200 milliamp pack in there. So that thing fits in there pretty well. My receiver, I just Velcroed to the top. And if you want to have the wing come on and off, it is very easy to do that. So you can break this thing down pretty easy for disassembly. There's just one screw there and the wing can come off in one piece. The downfall is on your receiver, you're going to have to run little jumpers off if you want quick disconnects, because right now I just plugged everything into the receiver. But I think a pretty cool thing that I'm going to do with this one, I'm going to get a couple flights in on it first. You always get flights in before you modify it. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to cut this door out. And I am going to set this up on a servo so the door will open and something in there spring-loaded and it'll eject little paratroopers. But pretty neat little plane here, the C-47. It is bigger than I expected it to be, but not too large. You need a trailer. It will easily fit in the car. But nice plane here from Dynam and Bitgo Hobbies. And I did program the ESCs. You can see in some of my other videos how to do that, or you can search in the internet. But programming the ESCs is absolutely very easy on this plane. So let's time-lapse, get some decals on this and get her done. And there you have it, guys, the C-47 Skytrain from Dynam and Bitgo Hobby. So we got the decals on there. If I had to give you some advice with the decals, if you're not great with them, maybe you should try the wet method, using a little bit of water, 1 drop of dish soap, and a drop of alcohol in like a half of a spray bottle. Otherwise, I mean, they weren't too bad. The directions that came with mine were for the other C-47, the transport version, not the military version. So on mine, I opted just to put the invasion stripes on the top, not the bottom, so you could see the difference in the air to make it a little easier. But the decals are a little bit cumbersome because they're so small, but you only get one shot at it if you're doing dry. As soon as, you know, I noticed that if I had it a little crooked and went to lift it, it got pretty tacky and it pulls the paint off really fast. So with that being said, you know, the decals can be challenging if you're not good with them. Otherwise, they're pretty straightforward. You can simply follow the cover of the box as I did to do mine. I thought that was easiest. So there's the build, there's the decals. This thing is ready to go. And I think it's time that we get this thing out to the field, throw some batteries in her, and let's get a maiden done on a C-47 Skytrain from Bitgo Hobbies.